Hey, how's it going? It's me, Hacks Pro. I guess that's the channel I'm uploading this to. Sokia, you had challenged me to make a deck that gets out this boyo onto the opponent's side of the field. You were playing Obelisk, like, way retro version of Obelisk, and you had Ra's Disciple, and you read it, and you learned you couldn't special summon. And you're like, hey, that's really annoying. How do I give this to my opponent? So, we were looking at different strategies, but I learned recently about Branded Expulsion. So, this is Albaz's Disciple. This is a deck that is focused on using the Albaz Strike Structure Deck in conjunction with some Despia support to make it to where your opponent's constantly controlling Ra's Disciple, and where you're making, like, pretty decent, like, Fallen of Albaz plays. I will note, this is a pseudo-budget version of the deck. You'll notice the main deck's like $46. We'll go by by card, but just know that if you're trying to cut down on price, Aluber, the Jester of Despia, is $5.62, so it's like $15 for the Alubers, and it's $15 for the branded openings. I view these as very important for this deck, because this just allows you to pretty consistently have the combo pieces you need to do everything. If you need to replace them for any reason, like you don't want to spend the money, the Albaz Strike Structure Deck comes with There Can Be Only One, a control card that's really annoying, Back to the Front, which special summons monsters from the graveyard, and then Trap Trick, which can be useful for searching out Branded Expulsion. We'll get into all those things, but I just want to preface that by saying this $60 price tag on the deck can easily go down to... let me actually just pull these out real quick. Like, this much. Yeah, it easily becomes like a $15 deck. Technically, it's triple Fallen of Albaz structure, plus some support. So, like, the Despian Tragedies are like 17 cents. If you get the structure decks, it'll come out to closer to like $40 for the total deck because of everything. But if you go for the route of getting the extra pieces that cost a little bit more, it'll come out to closer to $60. And that's also assuming that you use the entire side deck as well, which most of the side deck is, again, Fallen of Albaz support. So you don't need to buy any of this. This comes with the structure deck. But these are just kind of here to showcase 3 cards you could use otherwise. Pick any of the 3 and you can put them in your side deck and you should be fine. So, what are we doing? We are using Fallen of Albaz and friends to special summon out the dragons, the Albaz-based dragons, and we are sending Ra's Disciple to the graveyard to be special summoned to the opponent's side of the field using Branded Expulsion. Branded Expulsion is a card with the effect where you contribute a fusion monster, then target 2 non-fusion monsters that are banished and or in either graveyard, special summon both monsters, 1 to each field. If you attribute a fusion monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz as material to activate this card, you can special summon both monsters to your field instead, in defense position. When you use Expulsion, you can actually choose whether it's an attack and defense if you use one on either field, but if it's just on your side of the field, then it is just in defense position. This card, real quick, I'll make the music a little bit louder. But this card is the main way you get Ra's Disciple to the opponent's side of the field. Why would you do that? When it's summoned, special summon up to 2 Ra's Disciple from your hand and or deck. Not a useful effect for this. Cannot be tributed except for the tribute summon of essentially the God cards, Slifer, Obelisk, and Winged Dragon of Ra. You cannot special summon monsters except for by the effects of Ra's Disciple. That's what we're doing. We're using this as a lockdown strategy, and because Ra's Disciple is just a useful light monster, it allows us to go into stuff like Albion and make normal branded plays like from the start of the combo, which sometimes you skip and go straight to Lubellion using the Gimmick Puppet method. But main reason we're using Ra is because Sokia wants me to use Ra. Just know that this is also just what I prefer to use if you're going to use something like this, but this is the hyper budget version overall. What is that Gimmick Puppet? Gimmick. Can I spell it normally? Yeah, Gimmick Puppet. Which one is it that causes the lockdown? I don't remember if it's expensive, but I'm sure it's shot up in price. I don't edit this at all. I'm not planning on editing this, so I am sorry. I don't know. One of these gimmick puppets has an effect that also does the same lockout. Yeah. Yeah. So if this card is special summoned, you cannot special summon any monsters for the rest of the turn except for gimmick puppets. Is used in conjunction with this strategy as well. People will just throw this on the opponent's side of the field. It's not great. I actually prefer Raws just because instead of it just being for the rest of the turn, it's just permanent. So the opponent still can't do anything. Like during my turn, if they're playing something like Seer Laments or Kashteros or something that allows for special summoning during the opponent's turn, you still can't do it because the Raw's still stuck there during my turn. So I actually have more breathing room. I think it's better personally, but still. This card is also now $15, which is the really important part of this. This instantly makes the deck incredibly expensive. So this is the budget version of what that is. And again, I actually really do like Raw's Disciple way more. Attack value is 1,000 difference too. I don't know why people are obsessed with this card. Anyways, this is almost entirely derived from the Albaz Structure Deck. That's why stuff like this Dogmatica card is in here. That's why Tri-Brigade Mirror is in here. That's why we have Spriggan's Kit and Keeper of Dragon Magic. Most of this stuff is available through the just the structure deck that Branded was really solidified in. This structure deck is incredibly easy to find. It's probably the most popular structure deck. It comes with incredibly powerful cards. This entire side deck and multiple hand traps in here are all based from the structure deck. It comes with Ghost Ogre, Effect Veiler, Dark Ruler No More, D-Barrier, Warning Point, which I think is an underrated card and I think is really good. Trap Trick, I think it comes with Trap Trick. I think it does. But it comes with Back to the Front and there could be only one. I'm 100% certain. It comes with a bunch of really solid cards. It also comes, importantly, with Branded Fusion, which is one of our main playmakers. Well, let's just go through the cards, and I'll explain the strategy with them as we go. This Dogmatica card, Dogmatica Fleuridus, the Knighted, we're running it at 2. It special summons. We're running it at 3, sorry. And though, if we wanted to play with ratios, this would probably be the first thing we can cut. This guy is just in the structure deck. He special summons himself from your hand if you control a fusion monster, essentially, because that's what you have in the extra deck, but it's any extra deck monster. If there's another Dogmatica card on the field, it's technically also an Effect Veiler and it negates effects. However, nobody's really going to be doing that in this deck because you don't run the other Dogmaticas because those don't come with the structure deck. So, when he's special summoned, he just has 2,500, 2,500. And then if a Dogmatica attacks, including itself, you can make all Dogmaticas gain 500, which turns him into a 3,000 body. That's just really nice for comboing. He also allows you to go into Brigand, which requires a level 8 or higher monster, and Titaniclad, which requires a monster with 2,500 or more attack, very easily via Branded Fusion. Real quick, I'll just explain Branded Fusion. For those of you who are not familiar, this card lets you fusion summon a fusion monster that mentions the Fallen of Albaz as material from your extra deck, using 2 monsters from your hand, deck, or field. Importantly, deck. That's really strong. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except for fusions the turn you activate this, which is why there are no link monsters in here. The entire archetype is just fusions, and you can only activate 1 per turn. So each of these guys requires the Fallen of Albaz and a type of monster. Mirror Jade requires a Fusion Synchro, Xyz, or Link. Albion requires a Light. Brigand requires a level 8 or higher. The Lubellion requires a Dark Monster. Sprind, I'll explain why this is here later, but it requires an effect monster special summon this turn. I'll explain why that's there in a minute. And then Titaniclad requires a monster 2,500 or more attack. So, as we go through these will apply to different targets, and will be useful for different things. So just know the Dogmatica card, it's really useful for Brigand, it's really useful for Titaniclad. In a pinch, you can use it with Albion, because it's a light monster, but you really don't want to be using it with Albion, because that's what you're using Raw's Disciple for. Raw's Disciple is a light monster. So what you do, is you use Branded Fusion to send Fallen of Albaz and Raw's Disciple to the graveyard to get out Albion. And then you have Raw's Disciple in the graveyard, so that you can immediately, so that during the next turn, you can use Branded Expulsion to blow up like, worst comes to worst, and this thing gets negated or something, blow up Albion the Branded Dragon with Branded Expulsion to give this to your opponent, and you've done it. You've locked out your opponent from special summoning, which it's kind of an annoying lock. So that is the gist of that one. Albaz the Jester of Despia is really nutty. The most important part of his effect, really, is the fact that when he's normal or special, you can add a branded spell trap from your deck to your hand. This is incredibly versatile. This allows you to search for Branded Fusion, of course, which allows you to fusion summon. This allows you to search for Branded Expulsion if you already have Branded Fusion in your hand. This allows you to also search for Branded Opening, which allows you to discard a card and then add a Despia from your hand or special summon it. This card in the graveyard also gives your fusions protection from... Is it just battle? Or no, destruction by card effect. So if your cards would be destroyed by card effect, you can banish Branded Opening instead to protect them. Very often, if you're summoning the Jester of Despia, you're not actually searching for Branded Opening, but it's also an option. And then you can also find Branded Loss, which we'll get into in a bit when we get to it. But this is really important. The $6 card allows you to find the Branded Fusion, and if you already have access to the Branded Fusion via one of the other methods, namely these two guys, it allows you to go for Branded Expulsion. These are your core combo. You need this card in your hand at some point during your turn, and you need this card on the field at some point during your turn. If you don't get these two, your deck's going to suffer a lot. But like half the cards in the deck are enablers to help you do this. So, but yeah, Albaz, run at 3, really good card. Fallen of Albaz, it doesn't matter what his effect is. He has an effect that lets you fusion summon using both sides of the field, which is actually really good. You discard a card, fusion summon using monsters on either field as material, including this card. That's a really good effect. Doesn't matter. His name is the Fallen of Albaz. You have to run it at 3 because all of these guys require him, and Branded Fusion needs him to be in the deck. So even if he had no effect and was a vanilla, you'd still run him at 3 just because the name is like a necessity. The structure deck comes with Keeper of Dragon Magic. This is fine. This is when this card is normal or special, discard a card, add a Polymerization or a Fusion spell from deck to hand. You can reveal a Fusion monster from extra deck, special summon one of the materials mentioned on it from your graveyard and face down in defense position. This can let you... Special monster from extra deck, except for fusions. Yeah, this locks you into fusions too. But this lets you get out the Fallen of Albaz from your graveyard if you want him to be like face down on the field for whatever reason. But importantly, it also searches for Branded Fusion. So that's a total of 6 cards that can actually search that out currently, which we'll get into. Spriggan's Kit, it's a total of 9. We have a total of 9 cards that can find Branded Fusion, and Spriggan's Kit has the advantage of also being able to find Branded Expulsion. Spriggan's Kit is interesting. It's very similar to Albaz the Jester of Despia, whereas if it is normal or special, you can add a branded spell trap that is banished or in your deck or your graveyard to your hand, but then you put 1 card in your hand at the bottom of the deck. This is a lot more conditional. However, you can special summon it if you control a Fallen of Albaz fusion monster. This allows you to combo into just a normal summon of Albaz to search out Branded Fusion, use Branded Fusion to get out whatever combo chain you're going into with these guys, then special summon Spriggan's Kit to find Branded Expulsion, put some card in your hand back into the deck that's not Branded Expulsion, then you can set Branded Expulsion and you are all golden. These 3 here, Spriggan's Kit, Keeper of Dragon Magic, and Albaz, are all incredibly important pieces to being able to do this like silly combo as consistently as possible. This guy's not part of the structure deck, but these 2 are. If you're not able to get Albaz, these 2 are still like a necessity. Like these guys are really good. Rouse Disciple, we've already been over him. Tri-Brigade Mercurier. This is a hand trap that while you control a fusion monster mentions the Fallen of Albaz, you can send it from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard to negate a monster effect. If it's banished, it has an effect as well, but you're not really going to be using it. Importantly, this effect works while face up on the field, which means if you use Branded Expulsion to special summon a monster from your graveyard, if for some reason this card is already in the graveyard, you can special summon it to the field and then have a monster negate up while also locking your opponent out of special summoning. This is one of 2 hand traps I run that are just useful because they're on the field effects. If you're finding this is inconsistent because you don't have access to a branded fusion all the time, because this does require a branded fusion on the field, Effect Veiler serves a very similar purpose. It does not work on the field because it has to be discarded, or it has to be sent from your hand to the graveyard, but it is very useful. Both these effects are very similar, so run by preference. This one just works in conjunction with the trap that we're like focusing the deck around. So same with Ghost Ogre, by the way. Ghost Ogre is actually the best target, debatably the best target for that trap. This one is while a monster on the field activates effect, or when a spell trap that's already face up on the field activates effect, like a continuous spell trap or a field spell. You can send this card from your hand or the field to the graveyard, destroy that card. This also combos, much like the Mercurier, with Expulsion, to where you can give your opponent the special summon lock and then give yourself a destruction effect as opposed to a negation, because this negate does not destroy. Just really useful. And especially since if you get your branded fusion off, Mercurier, I think he stops hand traps. If your opponent hits you with Effect Veiler, I think Mercurier can negate it. Yeah, so he stops some hand traps. He wouldn't stop stuff like Infinite Impermanence, but I'm gonna keep it real with you, Sokia. Neither of us run an Infinite Impermanence like in the main deck besides you. And you run it in like 1 deck, so you should be fine. You'll just be stopping like Ash Blossoms and stuff like that. Although, this is the Ash target, but we're gonna ignore that for now. Anyways, these 2 are really good hand traps that work on the field after you use the trap. Despian Tragedy. This is a searcher for your searcher. If this card is sent to the graveyard or banished by card effect, you can add a Despia monster from your deck to your hand. This lets you search for Aluber, the Jester of Despia. Importantly, when it's banished, it also works. So if it's banished or it's sent, which is really dumb, Lubellion has an effect that requires you to discard a card to fusion summon, which means Despian Tragedy can proc off of that. Gold Sarcophagus lets you banish a card from your deck face up, which will let you proc off of that. I'll just put on the ban list thing so you can see why certain ratios are there. But yeah, Despian Tragedy is really strong. It's really good. And importantly, if you're not running a Luber, you probably need to replace him too. But this guy is 17 cents. He is incredibly cheap. He's a common in the set he's in, and everyone bought his set because it's a really good set. I think it's like, what, Power of Elements or something like that? Like, it's really good. He's a good card. 100% recommend. Having him at 3 is probably for the best. Again, if you discard him, it works. If you banish him, it works. If this card's just in your graveyard and it's like turn 3 or 4 or whatever, you can banish him from your graveyard, then target a branded spell trap in your graveyard and just set it for free too, which means it recycles these guys. It technically recycles this if you really need to recycle it. Like, it does a lot. It's very useful. Gold Sarcophagus, we already explained. Branded Fusion, we already explained. Gold Sarcophagus, you're not ever going to resolve that during the second standby phase, add it to your hand. If you do, great. But the main point is literally just to banish this so that you can get out a Luber to your hand. That is like the full like combo you're trying to do with this. Harpy's Feather Duster, destroy all spell traps your opponent controls. That doesn't come with the structure deck, but it's just generically good and it's less than $1. I think I throw Harpy's Feather Duster in almost every deck I make. It's always good to have some form of spell trap or destruction, and this deck doesn't really deal with back row at all. That's like its main weakness right now. So just this thing at 1 is fine. Branded Opening, discard a card, take a Despia, either add it to your hand or special summon it in defense. Locks you into fusions, but that's fine. You special summon a Luber, who searches out Branded Fusion or Branded Expulsion. Additionally, this discard will also proc Despian Tragedy. This discard will also unbrick your hand. If Raw's Disciple is in your hand, you're having a bad time. It either needs to be in the graveyard or in your deck. It does not work as like a card in hand, which makes it great discard fodder for Lubellion and for Branded Opening. It's also really good target to shuffle back into the deck with Spriggan's Kit. So you want this in the deck so that you can fusion summon with Branded Fusion with it, and you want it in the graveyard so that you can get it out with Branded Expulsion. But yeah, good card. Again, one of the more expensive ones in the deck at $5 a copy. So playset is $15. But it is not at all bad. I highly recommend it. This is like the Despian engine that I run in my Ishizu Tier Limit. Ishizu Tier Limit? Yeah, the Ishizu Tier Limit branded Despia deck I have, the Bidip. This is the engine that I run, is Aluber and branded opening. I would run Tragedy, but I just don't have enough room in the deck for it. that's the issue with Bidip. And if you're not Sokia, you don't know what Bidip is, and that's fine. I'll explain it at some point in my life. But just for now, just know this is a core like engine for branded decks. Call it by the grave, it eats a hand trap. If you get hit with Ash Blossom, branded fusion gets negated, and you kind of sit there doing nothing. So just call it by the grave to eat your Ash Blossom is always useful. Branded Lost is also a way to protect yourself. This one is searchable off of Aluber and Spriggan's Kit. The activations and effects that include a fusion summon if a fusion monster cannot be negated. Also, your opponent can activate cards or effects when a monster is fusion summoned this way. This is just generically pretty useful. If you fusion summon a monster, you can add a Fallen Valdez or a monster that mentions it from your deck to your hand. This means if you have Branded Lost and Branded Fusion, you play Branded Lost, you use Branded Fusion, you can search for Spriggan's Kit so that you can go into Expulsion, or you can search for Tribe Brigade Mercurier, because he mentions Fallen of Albaz, to get a monster negate on field in case you think they're going to effect Veiler you or something like that. Very useful. Not useful at more than one. You can search for it with a Luber, so you don't really need it at more than one, but, I mean, it's useful. And then, yeah, Branded Expulsion, this is the backbone of the interaction that we have with Raw. It's really useful. Mirror Jade is the boss monster. I'm going to explain real quick the basic combo you do with the basic lines you go through with these guys, because the fusions are kind of weird. Like Brigand, Sprigand, and Titaniclad, you only go into whenever you need those particular effects. This one's a massive boy. Titaniclad is the one that needs a monster with 2500 or more attack. Gains attack equal to the levels of monsters you use for its fusion summon X 100. Very often he will hit 37. That's like his cap in this deck is about 3700 attack. That's really big. He's unaffected by the activated effect of other special summoned monsters from the extra deck the turn he's fusion summoned, which is useful. All these guys also have effects when they're sent to the graveyard, except for like Lubellion. Titaniclad during the end phase, if he's in the graveyard, lets you special summon or add to your hand a Fallen of Albaz or Dogmatica monster. So if you really need Dogmatica on the field, you can use this guy in the grave to special summon him. Mirror Jade has an effect that starts yeeting these cards into the graveyard. So that's why I'm explaining all their graveyard effects, because Mirror Jade uses them as ammunition, which means during the end phase pretty consistently you can proc at least one of them. That's actually the reason why this guy's in here. He lets you special summon or add to your hand a Spriggan's monster or a Fallen of Albaz. That's Spriggan's Kit. If you really need to go into Spriggan's Kit, like out of desperation, this thing's useful for it. You can just yeet it into the graveyard, and you can search for Spriggan's Kit pretty easily. You can also occasionally go into this one. It requires effect monster special summon this turn. During the main phase, you can move this card to you control to another zone of your... You can move this card you control to another monster zone, like main monster zone, and then destroy all face-up cards in that column. It's fine. Nobody summons this. I don't summon it even. Lubellion's discard a card, fusion summon a level 8 or lower fusion monster from your extra deck, except for itself, by shuffling materials mentioned to it from the field, graveyard, and face-up banished. For the rest of the turn, you cannot attack with this, and you're locked into fusion monsters. Lubellion requires the dark monster. Very often in this chain, you'll go into Albion, which has a similar effect, except for you don't discard. He can still attack, and you banish the materials from your hand, field, or graveyard. Hand, field, and or graveyard. He lets you get out Lubellion, and Lubellion uses himself and the banished Fallen of Albaz, banished via Albion's effect, to get out Mirror Jade, because Mirror Jade requires a fusion, synchro, Xyz, or link. So that's like the basic line, is you summon this with Raw's Disciple and Fallen of Albaz, you go into Lubellion, you use Lubellion's effect to discard a card to go in, and you shuffle back into the deck. Because, yeah, this one shuffles the materials for it from the field, graveyard, or face-up banished. Shuffles them back into the deck itself and the Fallen of Albaz that's banished to get out Mirror Jade. And Mirror Jade's what you're trying to end on every turn. So that's just important to keep in mind. But yeah, when he's in the graveyard during the end phase, nothing happens. So he's really designed to send himself back to the extra deck because he just doesn't gain advantage from being in the grave. Brigand requires a level 8 or higher, cannot be destroyed by battle. Your opponent cannot target other monsters you control with monster effects, so he's a little bit of protection. During the end phase, you can actually add a Tri-Brigade or Fallen of Albaz. This guy is useful to search out Tri-Brigade and McCourier so that you can have him just whenever you need him. You don't go into him very often, and even like in summoning him, you don't summon him very often. Again, if you wanted to, you could probably make cuts to the deck on these three guys, but this is Albaz Structure, and in the Albaz Structure deck, these are like just this guy and this guy, Brigand and Sprint, are just the other two fusions you have access to. So you just run them at whatever ratios you want. You run 3 of everything else because everything else is useful. Titanic Clad's like super useful, but yeah. Albion's the one you're going into with Raw's Disciple. I've already explained his effect. During the end phase, if he's in the graveyard, you can add or set a branded spell trap from your deck to either your hand, you can add it to your hand, or you can set the branded spell trap from your deck. That is incredibly useful. This lets you add branded fusion to your hand during the end phase, or set branded expulsion. Important note about branded expulsion, it tributes the fusion monster, which means it will proc their end phase effects, if they have any. Importantly, if you tribute Albion for branded expulsion, during the end phase, you can use Albion's effect to either set a second branded expulsion, or search out branded fusion to add to your hand. Just all around very useful stuff. I don't know if that actually paused properly. I was trying to pause it because someone came in. I don't know if that paused properly. We'll see in the final thing. Mirror Jade's the big boss. You can only control one of them. Once per turn, quick effect, you can send a fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard that mentions the Fallen of Albaz. Banish a monster on the field. Also, this card cannot use that effect until the end of the next turn. Essentially, what this means is send one of these guys, preferably one of the ones with graveyard effects. These graveyard effects, by the way, they all happen during the end phase. Just an important note. It's on the cards, but they happen during the end phase. Banish card on field, send to set up for next play, but the turn after you use this effect, you don't have it again. So he's just kind of a big boy on the field. So you better make that banish count, because it's a really useful banish. It's a really powerful effect, but you only get it like once, maybe twice per duel because of how fast like this deck either OTKs or how fast your opponent's probably going to kill you. Also, if this fusion summon card leaves the field because of an opponent's card, if it's banished, if it's destroyed by card effect, if it's destroyed by battle, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls during the end phase. All these guys have their effects proc, like in the graveyard during the end phase, all their little special summons effects that I've mentioned. And Mirror Jade's is the big boss monster like effect that the entire archetype kind of builds around. Your goal every turn is to have Raw's Disciple in the graveyard, set branded expulsion, control Mirror Jade and Albion, and then when your opponent's turn starts, play branded expulsion to special summon Raw's Disciple and whatever you want on your side of the field. But special summon Raw's Disciple to the opponent's field, and then whatever they normal summon, just banish it with Mirror Jade. In a pinch, you can banish with Mirror Jade and immediately use branded expulsion to then lock them out of special summoning. But yeah, there's just a lot of options. And then side deck, 3 effect Veiler to negate a monster effect during the opponent's turn. Important, not in a once per turn, so if you have multiple effect Veilers, you can use them all. Dark Ruler no more to negate all monster effects your opponent controls. And they can't respond to monster effects, but they don't take damage for the turn. Really useful if you need to clear out a board. Dimensional Barrier, if your opponent's playing a Ritual, Synchro, Xyz, or Pendulum deck, to just lock them out of those categories. If you try to lock them out of Fusion, you will lock yourself out of your Fusion effects, and you don't want to do that. But otherwise, Debarrier is really useful. Warning Point to stop your opponent from using effects of monsters. This is really good if your opponent's playing something just like a Luber, where if you normal summon a Luber, you're supposed to use its effect special to search out Branded Fusion. If you hit it with Warning Point, not only can it not do that because its effects are negated, but also it cannot be used for any extra deck plays, which can be really annoying in a lot of decks. And then yeah, your preference, back to the front, there can be only one, Trap Trick. These two are just There Can Be Only One is you can only control one monster of each type. If they control two, they have to go to the grave, and you can't really special summon over it. This deck, weirdly enough, has a bunch of different types in it. There's spellcasters, there's fairies, there's dragons, there's psychics, there's winged beasts. The boss monster is a worm. This one's a machine. Like, this deck can play under There Can Be Only One, and it's perfectly fine. But it can be a little bit tricky because, like, Fallen of Albaz is a dragon. Most of the good ones are dragons, and then, like, getting to the worm can be difficult. Trap Tricks is probably what I'd recommend the most if you can't get access to Aluber and the Despian, like, engine. Trap Tricks lets you banish a normal trap from your deck, and then if you do set a card with the same name directly from your deck, it can be activated this turn, but you can only activate one trap card for the rest of the turn. You only have Branded Explosion as your other trap card in the deck. So Trap Trick at 3, would just let you search for Branded Explosion as like a backup option. Again, this is included in the Albaz structure. I'm 80% certain. I'm looking at the list right now in another tab. No, I don't think it is. It's included in the Trap Trick structure deck. So if you have that, it's fine. Trap Trick is also a 13-cent card. So, like, it's not really that big of an issue to pick this up. But Trap Trick is just a useful card. It can also search for Branded Explosion. If you're running hyper budget, Trap Trick is probably a good card to use. And then I guess, I don't know, like Pot of Extravagance, Pot of Desires, stuff like that. Just the generic pots that let you draw cards. Pot of Desires is probably the one I'd recommend the most. You'll end up banishing some of the cards you need sometimes. But it does let you draw 2 cards, which is just something you need a lot. If you're not able to afford the search engine of the Despias, then probably Pot of Desires at $1.80, and it's like limited to 2, so you can only play 2. The price of just like $3 versus the price of, what is that, 30 for the Despian engine? I guess it's a lot easier to just run that and then put in Trap Tricks and stuff. But yeah, this is the deck that spams out Raw's Disciples to the opponent's field. I hope that explanation works. We're going to keep going. Exit without saving. Uh-oh. Did I edit something? I don't know what I edited. I'm going to say... No, I'm going to save this, I guess. I don't know. I don't think I edited this since last. I think I was just grabbing cards and moving them around. But yeah, this is the basics of Albaz's Disciple. We're going to use it against a bot real quick, just so you can see it in action. I assume we are. There we go. I run a few different decks, obviously. I do have a branded Tearlament, like, fusion deck that I use primarily. That's also a bit more expensive, but it's budget compared to a lot of meta decks. But we're focused on Albaz's Disciple for the moment. I don't think there's a need to pick which bot the AI is using. In case you're curious, if you're not Sokia and you're like watching this, the bot may play cards that are banned. This bot is very strange. It plays like OCG cards sometimes, so we will see what happens. Branded Opening. We do not have access to Branded Fusion at the moment. We're going to use Branded Opening to search out Aluber. We're going to special summon him. We have 2 effects that are going to proc off of that. This guy got discarded, so we're going to use him to search out a monster. And then Aluber got special summoned, so we're going to use him to search out... he was going to search out a branded spell trap. However, Infinite Impermanence has negated his effect, so he doesn't do that. This deck has a few choke points. It's the issue with branded overall, is that it has a few choke points. That is probably the entirety of the turn, actually. This is terrible. We're going to banish this, I guess. It doesn't really matter. That is actually not good. Hold on a moment. We're going to try that again, but this time we're going to give the opponent Black Wings. The point is I want to showcase what the deck does without necessarily, like, having a deck that's going to be, like, hyper competitive against it. Because, again, $60 deck, it will not beat every single deck in the game. The branded strategy has a lot of points where you normal summon a monster, you use an effect, and just hope it doesn't get negated. Because if you get negated at any point during your combo, you kind of fall apart. But... in this example, I'm fighting against a Blackwing pre-made, So it should allow us to do what we're doing. So Raw's Disciple to grave, Fallen of Albaz to grave, Albion. We're going to use the effect of Albion to fusion summon for Lubellion by getting rid of the Albaz and grave. And Keeper of Dragon Magic isn't necessary anymore, so we're going to get rid of him. To get out Lubellion, we're going to use the effect of Lubellion, discarding Raw's Disciple, because that is not a good card to keep in your hand, to get out Mirror Jade, using the banished Fallen of Albaz and Lubellion. Here's Mirror Jade. Spriggan's Kit can activate now, special summoning itself. We're going to add Branded Expulsion to our hand. We're going to return Fallen of Albaz. And we're going to set the Branded Expulsion. And we are going to pass turn. So now, during the opponent's draw phase, we're going to activate Branded Expulsion, tributing Albion, who is just on the field still. We are going to personally special summon Keeper, and we're going to give our opponents Raw. It will ask me here, because it's in the simulator, if I want to use both on my side. I don't, so I'm going to say no. I'm going to keep Keeper in attack position, and I'm going to give them Raw in defense position. They are now locked out of special summoning. Ignore the tuner thing. That's an error with Omega. But Mirror Jade is on the field, meaning that I can banish whatever target comes up if they summon something that's kind of spooky. And Raw's Disciple's on their field, which means they cannot special summon. Black Whirlwind is fine. They have normal summoned Chris, sorry. Get Gale. Normally some special summoning would happen here. However, they are locked out of special summoning. They've moved to the battle phase. They're just big enough for me to care about that. So we've currently sent this turn Albion to the graveyard. So we're going to send something that's not Albion. I think I want to send... I think I want to get the Dogmatica card, actually, because we're going to go... This deck is essentially going to be delaying until we hit an OTK. So I'm going to banish that. And then during the end phase, we're going to activate Albion's effect to add Branded Fusion back to our hand, because we don't have a way to search for it right now. And we're going to use Titaniclad's effect to add Dogmatica monster to our hand. And we drew into a Branded Fusion. If we had drawn into something like the Despia, we could go and grab the trap again, so that if they somehow get rid of Raw's Disciple, we can get around it. However, I think this will be lethal, assuming that trap isn't like Mirror Force or something. So, we are going to, instead of going down the normal lines, we don't have to. Actually, I do want to, though. We're going to go down the normal lines just a little bit. We're going to send the last of our Raw's Disciple, and then Fallen of Albaz for Albion. We're going to use Albion's effect to special summon out Titaniclad, banishing a monster in our graveyard and the Fallen of Albaz to get out Titaniclad. We are then, this guy's been very eager, we are then going to special summon the Dogmatica card, because it is literally free. And this should be lethal. Assuming that trap card isn't like Mirror Force or something, it's lethal. If it is, there are options we have during the end phase, because these things will float again. But, for the moment, we go into battle, we attack Raw's Disciple, Dimension Prison, that's fine. Raw's Disciple, Mirror Jade. So that's essentially one of the things we're doing with this, is we're trying to lock them out until we have lethal damage on board. So, that's what's important with the deck, is just to make sure you have lethal at some point in the combo. And to keep giving your opponent Raw until you gain lethal. And just hope that their trap cards aren't 2 points. Cosmic Cyclone is a spell trap removal card that also could be useful. But again, Harpy's Feather Duster, if you draw into it, is great. And this deck's just naturally weaker to spell traps just because it doesn't have an answer to it. Because the structure deck doesn't have an answer to it. So, trying to keep it as structure decky as possible, but... That's a Gale. Normal summon pass, I guess. Yeah, I guess they just didn't draw any other things. Looking at this here, we have Expulsion and Fusion. We can technically be fine. However, we have Tragedy in hand and Raw in hand. We're going to use Branded Opening to discard Tragedy to search out the special summon, Aluber. And we're going to do that same chain 2 as before. And this time, we're going to get Branded Lost to our hand. Because once we start Fusion Summoning, it'll let us get into more advantage. We're also adding Aluber to our hand as well, just because it's free to do with Tragedy. Branded Lost got hit with MST. This is fine. It means our Branded Expulsion didn't get hit with MST, so it works out. We're not normal summoning Raw's Disciple. This immediately loses us the game if we do that. We're going to activate instead Branded Fusion. We are going to get out Albion via Raw Disciple and Fallen of Albaz. We're going to use the effect of Albion to get out Lubellion via this, and we can use the Aluber on the field or the Despian Tragedy. I kind of want to use Aluber on field just because I don't need him in defense position right now. For Lubellion, I'm going to use the effect of Lubellion, discarding Raw's Disciple, a card you don't want in your hand, to get out Mirror Jade, returning these two guys back. I'm going to set this. If I wanted to go get the fusion spell immediately, I could summon Keeper of Dragon Magic to discard Aluber to search out Branded Fusion. However, because we've already done the full combo, and this guy will just let you search for the Branded Fusion for free, I don't have an incentive to actually play this guy and essentially go -1 for it right now. I'm just going to hold this guy till next turn, and then normal summon him if my field disappears for some reason. So Albion's getting hit with Dimensional Prison. That's fine. This just forces us to use the Mirror Jade version of the Branded Expulsion trick, which is, I assume the opponent will do something. Dark Hole. That wasn't what I was after, actually. That actually messes you up a little bit. So, Dark Hole destroying all monsters on the field means if I did Branded Expulsion at this moment, it would not actually matter because it would blow up the Raw's Disciple on the opponent's side of the field. I'm going to do something that's kind of stupid. I'm going to banish my own Mirror Jade for Albion. Just because, if you do that, Mirror Jade's end of turn destruction effect will not proc if I destroy it myself, but it does allow me to use Albion during the end phase to just search out Branded Fusion. In addition, because Branded Expulsion's already down on the field, we can use that if we wanted to immediately. Why? I also very much so could have added, because Despian Tragedy's in the graveyard, he can banish himself to just give me Branded Fusion back. I also could have done the one that gives me back a Dogmatica monster instead, just to get another big body on the field. It's fine that that's not how that's going, but it's just what it is now. I'm going to use his effect to add, I guess, a second Expulsion. Set that. We're going to be going into Branded Lost via Tragedy. I'm going to use Tragedy to add Branded Lost back to our hand. Or I guess it sets it, huh? Yeah, set it, and then we're going to activate Branded Lost. We're going to use Branded Fusion to begin the Albion line again, using the last copy of Raw's Disciple in the deck. We're going to chain both effects here. We're going to chain Albion's Fusion Summon and Branded Lost. As we do this, we can do Expulsion, but there's not actually a benefit to locking them out of special summoning on my turn at this exact second. There's no purpose to it for the moment. So instead, we're going to add a monster that mentions the Fall of Albaz to our hand. That's going to be, we already have a second Expulsion down, so we don't need to search for any more branded cards. So it'd normally be Spriggan's Kit, but we're actually going to add Mercurier, because Mercurier is the hand trap. That's very useful. We're going to then do the normal special summon of Lubellion. We're going to get rid of, I guess, these two. I don't think I need Keeper of Dragon Magic. Albion, of course, using from hand. Yeah, I don't need to keep your Dragon Magic. It's fine. Lubellion effect. We're going to use Lubellion. We're going to discard Branded Fusion, just because we have way too many copies of Branded Fusion at this point, to get out Mirror Jade. We're actually going to use the Banished Mirror Jade and Fall of Albaz for this. Now, Lubellion cannot attack because he has used his fusion effect. However, reminder, Branded Expulsion is a +2 card, technically. It lets you special summon 2 cards that are banished or in the graveyards. This can also be to your side of the field in defense position, but importantly, it can just be on the field in attack position too. Boop. Now I can attack, and I have like an extra monster on the field. I could have played both of them on my side of the field, but in defense position, that's not as useful. We already have another Branded Expulsion for when Albion needs to go, so that we can do other things with him. We can also still banish with Mirror Jade to get rid of Aluber again, to just go into him directly. We'll see if that's necessary real quick. The lower attack one gets hit. The higher attack one, we will Titaniclad away. Well, we'll use Mirror Jade to send Titaniclad to banish Aluber. We'll attack with this. We'll attack with this. And that is lethal. During the end phase, I would be allowed to either add to my hand or special summon a Dogmatica card off of that. This one is much longer than the video I was making on the Obelisk deck. This is also going to be longer, more than likely, than the Danger Paleo deck that Sokia has also requested I like tinker with. This archetype, the branded archetype, just has so many steps to it. And even like the Albaz Structure Deck, which is like the basic structure deck you get, where most of these cards come from, it just has so much going on with it that it takes a while to explain exactly everything that's happening. So I'm going to do another random match just to showcase what the deck can do again. Branded opening. If we can avoid normal summoning Aluber, it is fine to avoid normal summoning him. We're going to discard Funnel of Albaz because we don't need him in our hand to special summon Aluber. Any way that we can cheat out a normal summon for advantage is perfectly fine. We already have Branded Fusion in hand, so we're actually going to look for either Lost or Expulsion. In this instance, I'm going to grab Expulsion because if the opponent has some form of hand trap to stop this from happening, they probably would have used it by now. So it's probably fine to just Branded Fusion. Branded Lost would be useful if you think your opponent has some form of like Ash Blossom or Fusion Negate. Branded Lost would be great to protect that, but for the moment, we do not need it. Plus, I don't know if later in the combo we'll even be able to search for Branded Expulsion, so we needed Branded Expulsion at some point. Albion. Doop doop. Albion the Dragon. Special summoning with Albion to get out Lubellion. I'm going to do that. And then we don't necessarily need the Aluber on the field anymore, so he can go away. Then we're going to use Lubellion's effect. We're going to discard McCourier. We're going to special summon that back with Expulsion later on, so it's fine to discard it. We're going to get rid of the one that's in the... We're going to return the Banished Funnel of Albaz and the Lubellion on the field to get out Mirror Jade. We're going to set Branded Expulsion, and then Aluber's effect has already been used this turn, so he's actually going to keep in our hand in case we need to normal summon him again, in case the opponent somehow wipes our board, which something like Dark Hole would be very nasty and would 100% do. So, at this point, we can Branded Expulsion if we want. I don't want to necessarily. I want to see if the AI has Dark Hole in hand or something. It has Preparation of Rites, so we're just going to do this. If it doesn't open something that's going to wipe the board, the AI typically just doesn't have it. If you think your opponent has something like Dark Hole, that's going to be kind of tricky to play around. But if you see your opponent setting up for plays in a deck that just doesn't typically run a field nuke, you should be fine. McCourier and Ra's Disciple will be summoned. I'm not going to summon them both onto my side of the field. I'm going to select McCourier from my side. I'm going to put it in defense position just because it has like such a low stat line. Ra's Disciple will be on the opponent's side of the field in defense position as well. This is a Necroz deck that we are fighting. they are unable to summon their Necros monsters. Oh, Gungear is just doing his thing, where you can target a Necros and can't destroy battle card effects. That's really strong. It's a real shame that Mirror Jade, who exists to banish the normal summon target, just gets rid of it anyways. Real shame that. So, this was technically a mistake. Albion's already in the graveyard, and its effect is a once per turn for that little search effect. So, technically, I should have sent Titaniclad. I will not lie to you. I am not the best branded player in the world. So I just forget little things like that sometimes. Anyways, we're banishing that card. And the opponent cannot special summon, so even if they have the ritual spell, it doesn't work. We're going to use the Albion to search out whatever we want. This can either be Expulsion if we want to use Aluber's normal summon on Branded Fusion, or Branded Fusion to use Aluber's normal summon on Expulsion. We're going to use Branded Fusion. We're going to add it to our hand. And then the turn will end. Despia Tragedy, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. We're going to use this to get out Albion. We can go straight into Lubellion if you want, but importantly, Mirror Jade has an effect where you can only control one of it. So, the second Branded Fusion, if you've already got Mirror Jade on the field, it's typically okay to go into Titaniclad or like Brigand immediately, just because you no longer have the ability to summon a second Mirror Jade. So like it's not very poignant to do other things. So Titaniclad's now on the field. He's got 3,700. This is his normal amount. We have sent Dogmatica, the Dogmatica card, to the graveyard because it is a level 8, which is useful. We're going to normal summon a Luber. We're going to use this effect to search out the Expulsion in case we need it. This is not lethal. The issue with not destroying Raw's Disciple at this exact moment is if the opponent is being smart, they will change this to attack position and run it into something like a Luber, the Jester of Despia, or even like Mirror Jade or Titaniclad, just to be able to special summon again, and then they'll make their plays. So as long as you can get set up for a second Branded Expulsion, I 100% recommend just beatering over Raw's Disciple once you can. Just beatering over it, hitting them for all you can, and then going into the end phase. And then as the opponent begins to think about doing things, go ahead and set up the lock again. I don't need to activate Mirror Jade, but Mirror Jade does exist. I don't want both cards on my field. I want the Dogmatica card, and he can have a fresh copy of Raw's Disciple in defense position. And now, whatever they summon, I can just banish with Mirror Jade. I'm actually going to use Mercurier to negate the search effect on that. And the AI is not doing anything. Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, Mercurier's effect while on the field procced because Senjin had a normal summon effect. I could have banished it with Mirror Jade. I don't think I want to this exact second. It's during the end phase, though. Yeah, just because we have this guy, we're also going to use Mirror Jade's effect just to send an Albion to the graveyard to banish Senjin. Dogmatica card will special summon itself from our deck. And then Albion's effect will activate, allowing us to add Branded Fusion to our hand again. And this should set up for the OTK. Or I guess not the OTK. This should just be lethal at this point. Oh, we drew into Branded Loss. Very cool. This should just be vanilla lethal. Like, it's just kill them immediately. But if they still had full health, this kind of setup allows you to just prepare for an OTK. We're going to use the effect. We're going to use the effect of Branded Loss to add Mercurier back to our hand. Because he's a hand trap, you can still use his effect while he's in hand. We're going to normal summon Tragedy just for fun. We don't need to, but I'm pretty sure that this is like beyond lethal. So attack with that. We'll attack with the Dogmatica using its trigger effect to make them 3,000, and that's the game. We'll go into this again. Openings like this are a lot weaker. The reason why stuff like Branded Opening is so useful is because these are all dead. None of these cards will proc properly. Even Tragedy will not proc properly without something like Opening Your Hand. Having like 9 or 12 starters is incredibly useful in making the deck like as consistent as humanly possible. Royal Decree has negated all of their trap effects. This means Branded Expulsion will not work, so we have to adjust our strategies ever so slightly. But it'll be fine. This just means that now we have to actually play the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Without locking our opponent out of special summoning. Which is terrible, to be fair. I hate letting my opponent play the video game. Or I guess, in this case, the card game, but video game on here. We've already used our Aluber special summon, our Aluber search effects, so we're not going to normal summon him this turn. We use Branded Fusion to get out Albion. Surprisingly enough, Ra's Disciple and this little like weird strategy doesn't change the line you normally go on with the Albaz Structure Deck. It's the exact same thing that you normally do. Fall of Albaz, and then the Aluber in defense position. That's not the Aluber in defense position. This is fine. Reading is hard. Use the Aluber in defense position next time. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, Lubellion to go ahead and special summon Mirror Jade. Using the Banished and Lubellion because Lubellion can't attack. We're going to special summon the Dogmatica in attack position. If I had the Aluber, I could normal summon it, and that would be lethal. This should also be lethal as well, so it does not matter. We're going to send Titanic Lad to the graveyard to do that. We're going to set Branded Expulsion, even though we can't use it. We could normal summon Mercurier, but there's really no point. Dogmatica card, 3,000 attack. Mirror Jade, 3,000 attack. And then Albion for 25 wraps up the game. So, yeah. That's a basic overview of what the deck does. Again, this is like mostly made up of the Albaz Structure Deck. If you want to replace stuff like the Aluber, Branded Opening, and Despia Tragedies, you can. Trap Trick, there could be only one, and I don't know, like Effect Veiler could help you. Draw cards like the Pots, particularly stuff like Pot of Desires and Pot of Extravagance can also help you here. There's a lot of really good ways to keep this deck budget, because Pot of Extravagance is also a cheaper card, although it's a little bit more expensive now. It does come in the Fall of Albaz Structure Deck, so if you want to use Pot of Extravagance, you already have that on you if you picked up the structure. But if you built this deck straight up, it's $46 for the main deck, like $4 for the extra, and then like $10 for the side. If you already have the Albaz Structure Decks, which a lot of people do, and again, if you want to, it has these really good cards already included in them, as well as other really useful cards for stuff like Dragon Link. That's really like funny dragons and all that. Aluber is like $6 a copy, and then Branded Openings like $5 a copy, and then Tragedies are like 17 cents. And Expulsion's also cheap at 12 cents. But yeah, this has been just an overview of Albaz's Disciple. I hope you've enjoyed. Sokia, I know that this is a lot, so I have spelt Disciple wrong this entire time. Disciple. Listen, I literally made this, play tested it twice, and went, yeah, that's fine, and then I gave it a name. Like, I wasn't paying attention. I had that wrong the entire time. It's fine. Who cares about the S? No, actually, I'm owning it. This is Albaz's Disciple now. But yeah, I hope this helps, Sokia. I know this is a really long one. Hopefully you like the sound of my voice, but yeah. Yeah, if you were to improve the deck, I mean, just Branded. There are so many cards that you can start with. If you want to improve it, Branded in red, it costs a little bit, but you can search it out. It allows you to bounce a monster back from the graveyard to your hand to fusion summon. Branded and White will just use cards from your graveyard, which is useful, but it's already part of the deck. The Bestials are a really good engine that can banish cards from your graveyard to special summon itself. In particular, Bestial Lubellion's really good for your plays. That is a $70 card, though, but it's really strong. Light of the Branded's a thing that exists. I don't know. You can go more into the Despian plays. The Despian line involves stuff like Grangler. Oh, what is that called? Gran Gingunmalor, the Dusk Dragon. It's got the Quarterus. It's got Protoskin. This is the one that decreases everything's attack to 0 if it's not like a level 8 fusion. This is the one that makes you burn for 600 every time you activate a card or effect. This one just targets a Fusion Sinker or Link in the graveyard, or Xyz in the graveyard, banishes it, then special summons it to your field. It's also a really big guy. Like, you can focus more on the Despian line if you want. There are more Despian cards out there, but this is just like a very like basic inclusion of the Despians to make the deck more consistent. But yeah, no, there's like Ad Litem. Like, there's an entire line of Despian monsters you can use. I'm nonsensical. I still think the Tier Lament cards at 1, show the ban list, at 1, I still think including like at least Marley or something in the deck to get out like a Lubellion for free or something is really funny. Just because these cards fuse once they hit the graveyard. Like, this deck has a lot of ways that you can go with it. Dogmatica. The Dogmatica monster is really good. This one lets you add a Dogmatica card from your deck to your hand except for itself. If you use that off the special summon effect of... not Albion. Titanic Lad lets you special summon a Dogmatica monster, which means if you special summon Ecclesia, a $7 card, you can add the Knighted. Yeah, you can add for the French one. You can add the Knighted. I don't want to say its name. I've been Ferdurlus, the Knighted. I have like an infamous meme. We're at beyond the hour point. You're already stuck here. I'm gonna have like an infamous meme where like I just don't know how to pronounce Yu-Gi-Oh card names. I will not lie to you. I've been pronouncing them wrong this entire time. Mercurier, I think that's how you pronounce that still. But the Knighted, you can search him out, add it to your hand. As long as you control a fusion monster while you've done that, like you've done it with Mirror Jade, this is just Effect Veiler for 3,000 attack on the field. This is also excellent to combo with stuff like Ecclesia. I think there's another one that's a quick effect too, isn't there? I know it's that one. You can use stuff like Dogmatica Punishment as well to yeet your cards from your deck to the graveyard to blow up cards on the field, which will then allow you to also activate the Albions, the Titanic Lads, the like Brigands, all that jazz. There's a lot of routes you can go with this to make the deck even better. I wouldn't recommend putting in Tri-Brigades or Spriggans, really. They don't normally combo with the deck well, but Dogmatica and Despia, and to a wild degree, Tier Lament, all combo into this pretty well. So there's a lot of paths to go, a lot more things that you could do with the deck, but off the structure deck, I would recommend picking up Tragedies, Openings, Expulsions, and Alubers, and your Raws, and making a deck that's, it's not the most consistent thing in the world, but it's kind of stupid. Kind of does a lot. It's kind of dumb. So, yeah. I hope this has been helpful. I know this one's way longer than you're probably used to. But yeah, that's just an explanation of the branded deck, like the branded structure deck, mixed in with the Raw's Disciples and the Despian cards. I hope you've enjoyed. Sokia, let me know if this helps at all, if you even like make it to the end. If you've made it to the end of this video, comment a Luber the Duber or something, I don't know. Comment Raw's Disciple is based in the comments section. Let me know you've made it to the end. Did I read that right earlier, by the way? Is this actually the Gimmick Puppet people are using? Special summon this card from your hand about you beating a face of XCs. You can only special summon it. You can special summon Gimmick Puppet from your hand or graveyard. You can special summon one Gimmick Puppet. If this card is special summoned, you cannot special summon any monsters for the rest of the turn except for Gimmick Puppets. This is really the one that people are using. Why? Why is this really expensive one, the one people are using, and not Raw's Disciple? It goes straight into Lubellion, which is not the best starting point. Like, Albion's a really good starting point, and combos well with Lubellion. I don't know why you'd go into Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. I don't know, that's weird. This is the one I see everyone using, is they keep saying, yeah, no, Gimmick Puppets. The opponent doesn't play Gimmick Puppets, so if you special summon it, it's really funny. It's like, I guess, but I'm trying to see if anything else could possibly be the card I'm thinking of, but I think it's that one. And it's kind of bad. Yeah, don't play Gimmick Puppet Nightmare for $15 a copy. Don't do that. Just play Raw's Disciple for 11 cents. It's a much better trade-off. It's way better value for your money, and it does the same thing, but slightly better. There's no real disadvantage to this. It doesn't even, like, lock itself out from anything. So if your opponent's playing, like... If your opponent is playing, like, Branded, they can use the Branded Fusion on the Gimmick Puppet the next turn to then get out something like Brigand. Why would you... I must not understand how high-level Yu-Gi-Oh! Works. Somehow Raw's Disciple is worse than Nightmare. I don't understand. Anyways. Oh, because... I guess it's more useful because the effect lingers even if you get hit with a Dark Hole. Because Raw's Disciple, its effect only lingers while it's on the field. So if your opponent does like, use Dark Hole on itself, like use Dark Hole as their opening play, get rid of Raw's Disciple, and then go into their combo line, then in that edge case, Gimmick Puppet Nightmare would be more powerful. I guess if they Book of Moon Raw's Disciple, it's also slightly less powerful, because it doesn't work while it's face up. Whereas this one's just for the rest of the turn, you can't special summon. I guess Raw's Disciple's edge case where it's more powerful is the fact that during your turn again, if the opponent would have some form of like Necro Fusion or something that lets them special summon during your turn, they still can't because Raw's Disciple is face up on the field. I don't know. I do know that for our casual play, Sokia, this will still probably mess up 90% of my decks. I don't know how to deal with this without just playing like my own Slifer deck or something. Which I don't have because there's no good Slifer recipes. But yeah. Thank you again for watching. I've been HaxPro. It's been so long since I've used that username, but that's where this is going. Thank you for watching this kind of rambly mess, and I hope you guys have a good one. The next video on this, I am actually planning on making a next video, is going to be Danger Paleos. So watch out for that nonsense. I love drawing my deck and decking out. It's my favorite mechanic. Anyways, see ya.